Okay, so what is SAP HANA and why should you care about it? HANA is a technology that allows us to pretty much store all of our data in memory. For years, all we had available to us was disks, so like your standard hard drive plugged into a server, and that was your database. But now, it's all stored in memory. So the old database gets thrown out the window, and HANA gets plugged in, and everything runs lightning fast using memory instead of disk. So HANA is SAP's vision for the future. They're positioning themselves to be more of a database vendor by pushing HANA. It's not a piece of software. So BW 7.3 is software, BW 7.4 is software, and HANA is a database. So it's completely separate. But the way they're bundling and selling the HANA is put all of your data on this new database and revolutionize the way you run your business. You no longer need to focus on optimizing the way your BW installation is set up, so you don't have to architect differently. It almost encourages sloppy development because everything runs so fast no matter what. But it's definitely a good thing and is disrupting the industry. So basically, what this is showing is it's enabling business to be real time, not near real time. So in today's world, most business loads happen overnight when the systems aren't being loaded with users, and it's easy to schedule jobs to kick off, and by the time the morning rolls around, all of your data has been updated. With HANA, you don't even need to schedule nightly loads anymore. It can be real time. So it's that much faster to load data into BW and also report off of that data. This slide demonstrates why HANA is great. Currently, if you don't have HANA, you're storing your data all over the place in your BW system to optimize performance. So in this example, you can see that the ECC transaction gets pulled nightly at the BW side and is stored in the PSA. And assuming your data flow exists, the next step would be to then load that data into the data store object. After that, you push that data into a DSO, cleanse it, transform it, and now the data is sitting in 3 different areas. So your PSA, your DSO, your secondary DSO, and finally your info cube. So that's 4 disk writes that are happening and 4 different tables that are storing that data. And as time goes by, these tables grow and we have to archive that data in order to make sure that performance is optimal, we don't have too much in a particular table. And then SAP tries to sell you on the Business Warehouse Accelerator to store your cube data in memory to increase performance of reporting. Unfortunately, increasing the speed of reporting has no effect on the actual inserting of data into tables, and that's where HANA shines. So instead of loading data into info cubes to have it be replicated into a BWA, you could simply use your DSO to report off of. It's already optimized because it's already in memory. So there are a few different flavors of SAP HANA. The standalone version, which basically is a server that's running on all memory, and you can model within it. You don't have to have BW installed. Think of it like like a cloud that's all in memory, and you can load whatever you want into it, much like a BWA, but it's just a database that you can store whatever the heck you want on it. The next flavor is SAP BW on HANA. So there's 2 different options. So when you're going live with HANA, you can do a side-by-side migration, which means you have your existing production environment that's running on disk, and you simply migrate all of your old projects onto this fresh BW installation that's running on HANA. So one by one, you move your departments over, like accounting, finance, HR, You chunk that out that way. So you have that brand new, starting from scratch environment. You're able to make any tweaks you need to or optimize your data flow for HANA. And in doing that, there's minimal disruption to your existing operation. So that's the best way to go. A lot of times, companies will try to cut over and turn off their existing production environment and throw everything on HANA. But oftentimes, there's tons of connection issues that haven't been resolved yet. So it's a best practice to slowly migrate everything over to HANA. Or you could just start brand new and you keep your existing development in your SAP BW system that's just on your old disk database, and development going forward goes to HANA. Obviously, this isn't optimal because a lot of the departments that are complaining about performance aren't able to realize the benefit of HANA because the team has decided to not put their projects on HANA and they're leaving them kind of in the dust on this old system. So in order to not upset any of the business users, you should probably bring them over to HANA if they are experiencing performance issues. But I mean, if their performance is already fine, there's no need to bring them on HANA because HANA is very expensive. You want to make sure that you can reserve that space for people that actually really need it. So some FAQs on HANA. Is HANA a database, hardware, or a solution? So HANA is an in-memory database appliance. It's a technology that enables solutions. It is not a solution by itself. Obviously, you need to put in a lot of work to get HANA up and running and configured to your installation. HANA is appealing to customers because most data warehouses have tons of data and poor performance because of that. HANA allows you to resolve all these issues by throwing all that data in memory. It's not plug and play. HANA requires a hardware team to configure the box, data modelers to make sure that the new views within HANA are optimized prior to actually moving the data, and making sure that the BI tools have been configured to read from the HANA box and not just off of the old system. What does a customer need in order to get up and running with HANA? They obviously need to purchase the HANA server from an SAP approved vendor, and the licenses, which can be very expensive, also need to be purchased. So how does BWA differ from HANA? HANA will replace BWA if you migrate your entire BW database over to HANA. There's no need to accelerate anything in the BWA because it's already been accelerated as soon as it hits the HANA database. HANA won't replace BWA if you aren't performing a complete database migration over to SAP HANA. So BWA has no effect on data loads and activations, which HANA does. So that's a huge plus for HANA. So DSO activations can take a ton of time, and with HANA, they're lightning fast. And there's just a quick chart comparing the two. So BWA fast read on info cubes, HANA fast read all cubes, all tables, everything. BWA requires a lot of manual setup to accelerate. HANA automatically accelerates everything. And with BWA, there's no real change to the data loads and activation process. It's actually longer because you have to roll that new request up from the info cube into the BWA. So it's one additional step added, whereas HANA automatically has faster data loads and activations with less steps required. One of my clients who implemented HANA, so you can see here the old database was 42 gigabytes roughly. After implementing HANA, it was down to 6.6 gigabytes. So tremendous savings because HANA compresses its data. So not only is the data taking up less space on the database, it's lightning fast. And this is no schema changes were required. It's the same data, the same SQL, and essentially the cutover was seamless. Comparing the query runtime, there really was no comparison. The old queries took, over 1,000 seconds to run. One of the longer ones took almost 3,000 seconds to run. And once implementing HANA, they took 5 seconds to run. So ridiculously fast. What exactly does HANA improve? The biggest things HANA does for you is compress your data so it takes up a lot less space because it stores it in columns versus rows. And from a performance aspect, the query runtime is significantly faster. So here's a sample SAP HANA installation plan. Your vendor configures and installs the SAP HANA hardware. Your basis team and SAP patch the HANA appliance to the latest version. SAP and your basis team work on the SLT installation. The consulting arm of things will then replicate data into HANA. And then the modeling will take place and report development. And that concludes the introduction to SAP HANA.